speaker. So Sarah Stackhouse, our guest speaker, will talk about what to include in your budget. So Sarah, welcome again. And I'm very glad to introduce all of you Sarah Stackhouse. And she's the International Students Admissions Counselor at University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. And well, we're very glad to have you today, Sarah, so that you can talk about us with all of our audience about what to include in their budgets. Sarah? I think Sarah is having some tech issues. Okay, so Sarah is going to talk about, remember that we said that you need to consider that room and board is one of these important aspects that you need to consider. Okay, where you're going to live. Okay, so do you need a meal plan, right? How much does it cost?
Okay.
Hi.
Now it's working.
Oh, great.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, my name is Sarah, and just a little bit about me. So I'm from the United States originally, and I completed my undergraduate and graduate studies abroad in the UK. So I, much like you, was an international student having to make a decision, right? Where do I want to study? Where do I want to go in the world? Simply based on websites, right? And talking to people. So I've definitely been there, kind of through the process of researching, especially because this is a grad presentation. And just I can kind of share with you some personal advice or wisdom, I guess, that I learned along the way, and some also, of course, that I normally share with students as well too. So that's just a little bit about me. And yeah, we can go on to the next slide. Perfect. So in regards to room and board, right, there's going to be a lot of options. Sometimes you will have an option, sometimes you won't, right? Yes, I think, can you see me okay? Okay, perfect. So yeah, sometimes there will be an option, sometimes there won't. So it's really going to depend on the university, right? And what their rules and regulations are. So sometimes it will be mandatory for you to live on campus. Sometimes you'll have the option. Yeah, so sometimes it'll be mandatory. Sometimes you'll have the option to live off campus. And each of that comes with its own, right, positives and negatives, right? Going to a new country and renting and trying to figure out, okay, where can I get a place? How far is it from campus? How will I get to and from campus every day? How much will it cost? Is the renter who I would be renting from, are they legitimate, right? Or is it going to be safe for me? There's a lot of things to think through when renting off campus and just trying to think through that process. And one of the main things, right, is when you stay on university campus housing, is it really gives you the opportunity, one, to be on campus and to get to meet students, right? So the social life can be different as well too. But also, if the Wi-Fi is not working, or the plumbing has a problem, or whatever, the heat's not working in the wintertime, right, and you're freezing, they might be minor things. You might be like, Sarah, that I'll deal with it when it comes up. But and sometimes if you are living off campus, I have had, just in hearing and passing and stories shared, sometimes students do have struggles with their people that they rent from, and making sure all those items are taken care of. Is it included in rent? Do they have to pay extra? How much extra? And sometimes that can be a hassle. And a lot of times there's contracts, right? So with university housing, if you have something come up, or for example, in the US when COVID hit, and students wanted to go home to be with their families, and distance learning went, right? So the people that were living on campus, they were able to go ahead and get out of their contracts, obviously depending on the university. but they were able to go ahead and get out of it. Whereas sometimes if you're renting off campus, right, that may not always be the case. So just know that those are kind of some things to think through if you will be living on campus or off campus. The other thing that's important to keep in mind is what's included in your rent. So much like it would be in Mexico, the same thing applies in the US, right? When you rent an apartment or you rent a suite or, wherever it is that you're renting, is Wi-Fi included? Is heat? Is air conditioning? Is electric included? Is parking included? So if you live in Wisconsin and it's snowing outside, right, you're going to want your car to be in a garage. And so, that's one thing also, like, is there an option for parking, right? Where are you going to park your car if you have one? So those are just some things to think about what would be included. I know on our campus, we do have the option, for the room and board also to include meals, which means you would be eating on campus, right? And we give the international students the best meal plan that we offer. Now, every university is going to be different. Are meals included? Are they not? And then what's the positives and benefits, right? So some places it may be difficult, right, to get to a grocery store or to find restaurants off campus. Not necessarily difficult, but you may need a car, right? And a car would be an additional expense you'd have to think about. Whereas if you're eating on campus, how many days a week would you eat on campus? Would you even like the food? That's another thing to think about. So that's always a toss up. Do you want to get the meal plan? Do you not? Some universities will require that if you're getting the housing, you have to get the meal plan. Some won't require it. So we have over 4,000 universities and colleges and everything across the US. So I know it's always hard, but really you need to find out from the universities you're most interested in and ask those questions, right? What's included in my room cost? Is the meal plan also included? Is it the best meal plan, or what's the best meal plan for my buck, right? Or for my money? So that's always a good question. Also, a lot of times you'll find on pamphlets or brochures, it'll be, tuition is, or sorry, the room and board is maybe $8,500. Okay, but for how long? Is that only for the academic year? Does that include the summer? Is it only per semester? It's not always going to be that the material will clarify that information. Sometimes you'll have to ask, right, that information yourself. So as you're planning to go for graduate school, right, you're going to be getting into research and asking like questions and getting used to that kind of inquisitive thinking. The same thing goes before you're even getting right to grad school, is really taking the time to understand, what do the numbers mean? It's one thing that says, 8,500, but what does that include, right? How long is it for? And so asking questions like that will be really important. Or, if I include this meal plan, how much more will it cost? Or is it single or double occupancy? Will I have a roommate? Is it going to be an American roommate? Is it going to be Mexican or an international roommate? And all of that stuff will kind of affect your situation. So, and every university has their own way of like dealing out roommates as well too. So that'll be important. Also is like, even though it's university housing, is it on campus or is it off campus? If it's off campus, how far away is it from campus, right? So there's going to be a lot of things you're going to want to think about when choosing your room and board. And a lot of times you'll have options, rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're like, well, I've never been there. How am I supposed to know? And I went through that too when I studied in the UK. And just trying to decide. And so basically, a lot of universities will have housing videos, so you can see each of the dorms, what's included, what type of students normally live there. Like sometimes there's living and learning communities where it's like, these people are passionate about the outdoors, so they'll live in one section, or these people are passionate about volunteering, so they'll live in one section. So really just taking the time to explore the website and figuring out which on-campus housing best suits the lifestyle that you want to live. And knowing that even if you don't get the first option, there would be many, many other options and opportunities that even if you don't get your first choice, sometimes it always works out for the better, right? And so I kind of know going through that, right? If you don't get the first one, it's like, I'm gonna have to figure out how to take the bus and figure out how to get to school, and how's that gonna work? And I have to budget like maybe half an hour to get to school. And so all of those things affect your daily schedule, right? But the plus side of my personal experience was not getting the first choice, is that I was able to live literally on the sea. Like I was right next to the sea. I could go for walks. It was a really peaceful environment. There was a golf course. There was the like rugby stadium. So there was tons of benefits that, until I knew and was able to get like to the UK, right, and explore the area and be on the ground there, and really get to know my neighborhood, I wouldn't have known that that location would be perfect for me, right? Because I love to be near the water. So I would just say definitely keep all those factors in mind. I know that's kind of a lot. A lot of times, if you're planning to live off campus, the university may have a list of off campus like housing options, or they might have some sort of suggestion. So I would say just before you start, like, we say darts, like playing darts, where you take the dart and you throw it at the board and, see where it lands. Before you start taking that approach, I would just definitely ask your admissions officer, if I am able to live off campus, where do you suggest, or where do most of the international students live? Or can I talk to an international student that is currently living off campus? That would also be really helpful to get some of that practical experience, and to get their perspective as well too. So just like once you get to uni, you'll be doing research. Definitely, before you even get to uni, doing the research also will be really, really important too. All right, next slide, please. And I don't know, I cannot see any questions. So if people have questions, maybe we'll just save them for the end. But yeah.
Yes, we're going to have a question and answer section at the end. So everybody, please, we kindly ask you to send your written questions to Q&A Marta Beltran, please.
Okay. Okay, yes. So the other expenses you're going to want to think about is, so I think it's an interesting time. So I remember, when I was an international student, I had been working all summer to save up, so that way I could pay the tuition and the room and board, everything by myself. And I remember it came time to pay the tuition, and it's like with one click of a button, like all your money's gone. And it's like, oh wow, okay, like I was working so hard, and then right. So the main thing is what you're paying for, right? Your tuition and your room and board, you have to really want it, and you have to know in your heart, like, what is my outcome? What do I want to gain from this experience? Because it has to be worth what you're going to be paying for it, right? So there might be maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 courses that you're really excited about, that you really want to pursue. And you have to figure out which one is worth my money. It doesn't mean choosing the cheaper option is going to be the best option for you, but it means thinking through, what is its worth? What is its value? It's the same thing when you walk into the store, you walk into the market, right? And you're trying to decide, right, what you want to eat. And it's like, okay, what's worth the money that I'm going to spend? You want to get something that's the most delicious, or something maybe that you're craving, or something that you love, right? So the same thing is when you're choosing your university, you want that same feeling, you want that same passion to come through. So you want to make sure whatever you're spending, right, on your tuition, room and board, and all the other expenses, that it's worth, right? It has that worth, it has that value for you. So I would just say, really take some time and reflect, right? What are the current expenses you have now in Mexico? Is it you're paying housing or rent, right? Okay, that's one thing. Are you paying for schooling currently at the moment? That's another thing. But what are those daily expenses, like, oh, I need tape for a project, right? Or I'm going to need to get books because I need to study, right? Maybe you're studying for the GMAT right now, or the TOEFL, or the IELTS, right? What is that costing you? And what are those additional expenses? If you have a car, right? How much does that cost you? And it's not only having a car, but it's maintenance. So when the engine breaks down, right? Oh, I'm going to have to pay for it, right? So I think in the earlier presentation, they mentioned kind of all those oddities, right? All those little bits and things that you normally have to pay for. What are they? So if you just start like monitoring your daily activities, and every time, like if you buy something, you can just make a note, like, okay, what did I buy today? And you can just kind of write it down. If it was food, if it was water, if it was maybe it was internet, right? You had to pay for internet. If you have to pay your rent for the apartment. Just keeping track of all of that can really help you to budget and see, like, what is my lifestyle? If you have a gym membership, right? Are you going to want a gym membership when you get to the US? Maybe, right? Probably. So that'll be an additional expense. So keeping track of kind of your lifestyle and what you normally spend money on at home can really help you to kind of budget and figure out, okay, what are those expenses that I'll be spending in the US as well too. And so sometimes that can be helpful just to kind of think about like, oh, did I need to buy that? Or is that more of a need or a want, right? Which is number 3 here is like, did I need that or did I want that? And what's the difference? Yes, you're going to need your textbooks, right? That's a need. So that way you can submit your assignments and do your homework and everything like that. That'll be really important. The wants, you might have to think about those, like what is worth it to you to spend? Because if you notice, for a lot of universities, right, personal expenses will be listed. So for example, ours is 2,300, okay, for personal expenses. That's just a guesstimate. You can have people that wouldn't even come close to spending that much money, and you can have people that would spend 10 times that amount, right? Just based on their lifestyle. Do they go shopping every weekend? Do they need the luxury brands, right, when they're going shopping? Like, and so it really depends on you and your lifestyle. What are your spending habits as to kind of what budget you're going to need? And you know best about yourself, what you spend money on, what you choose to prioritize, right? And so that'll be important, just kind of knowing yourself. I think that's a really big one. And what are your needs versus your wants when it comes to spending? And what items do you normally pay for? I think we kind of covered that. Knowing the cost difference, right, in Mexico and USA, but then also, right, knowing the differences in costs all across the United States. So it's like you can imagine staying, you know, in New York City, or staying in Los Angeles, California, or staying in Miami, Florida, versus staying in maybe a rural city, right? That's a smaller town that you've probably never heard of. So there's really going to be differences when it comes to, you know, just kind of geographically across the US, and knowing what those differences are, and being able to understand, right, the cost, like what does milk cost in Mexico versus what will milk cost in the USA? And just kind of thinking about some of those, you know, just the differences in the money and how that might affect your budget as well too. And emergency costs, right? You never know what can pop up at any time. That's called life, right? And I think we deal with it every day, and we just deal with it the best we can. And so when it comes time for, right, what are those emergency costs? It's just making sure you have enough money, you know, if you have to go home for any reason, you know, if you need to get a flight ticket, how much is that going to cost you? Like I mentioned, if your engine breaks in your car, what are you going to do about it? So just little things like that. The same way in Mexico, you have to be prepared for that. The same way, you know, just because you're changing the country does not mean that the normalcy of life necessarily will change that much. So you're still going to have those emergency costs that you have to be ready to pay for. Next slide, please. All right, so for the tuition and fees, right, what's included in your tuition? So some schools will have books included, some will have your fees included, and some will only have tuition, right? So again, the same thing, you have to make sure, in English we have an expression, right? You're comparing apples to apples. So it means you're comparing the same thing to the same thing. So, you know, if you attend, right, a college fair, and you know, you get, let's say, 8 brochures, right, from 8 amazing universities, and you're like, okay, well, this tuition is this much, this one's this much. Do you actually know what's included in that, right? So you're going to want to make sure that you're comparing the same thing. So if you ever talk with admissions counselors or the Education USA representatives, right, it'll be really important that you understand what is included in the tuition and what is included in the fees. So fees are normally, as they mentioned, just going to cover basically being an international student. That means having support on campus to help you with your visas, right? And when you need to apply for OPT and CPT and extensions and all of that fun stuff. So you know, it really will be important in orientation costs as well too. Some universities will have an orientation fee. Some universities will also charge you to send your documents, right? They say, okay, well, we'll mail them back to you, but you're going to have to pay for that, right? Or mailing your I-20. Some universities will charge for that. Other ones will make it complimentary, right? So it's really just going to depend. And I know that's hard and that's not fair, that every university is different. So it really is going to, again, you're going to have to put your research hat on and really take the time to get to know and dig down. And just seeing a number is, you cannot take it at face value. You cannot just accept it for what it is. You really need to dig down and understand, okay, what is included in this number? Are my books included? If not, how much are my books going to cost me? Are international student fees included? If not, how much are they going to cost me? Is there an orientation fee? Am I going to have to pay? I know before they talked about application fees. You know, is there any chance that that can be waived? If yes, okay, what are my options, right? And so there's a lot of different things that will and won't be included in each of the tuition costs, but it's going to be really important that you make sure, right, that you're comparing the same thing. And one thing also I would say is, like, sometimes we'll be at university fairs with, I'll be there with some of my colleagues, right? And it's like, for example, my university tuition is 17,500 for undergraduate, okay? And someone else's could be $60,000. And so the $60,000 people may be giving, let's say, $40,000 or, you know, $45,000 in tuition, okay? And we, let's say at my university, we're giving maybe $4,000 or $5,000 in scholarships. So the end total is going to be the same, right? But you see, their starting fees is 60,000 and mine is 17,500. And so, but if people, like, some students will come up to me and say, Sarah, how much are you giving in scholarships? And I can say, like, oh, maybe it's, you know, this is just an example. Maybe it's $4,000 to $5,000. And then the next person says, oh, well, you'll be getting $45,000. And they're like, wow, you know, that's huge. But you look at the end result and it's still the same. It's still going to cost you the same. So I would say just make sure you're being aware of the numbers, and just really asking, you know, really asking the right questions. And those questions will be, what's included? What's not included? Are there any hidden fees? What else do I need to know about? Are there international student fees? Will there be any other fees I need to pay, right, to the university apart from this? Is there installment options, right? Is it able to be broken down into 2 semesters, or is it broken down into 3, 4 payments? You know, really asking those questions can help you to make your decisions about what is the best financial fit for you and your family. Okay, next slide, please. Yay. So yes, finding the right fit. So again, just kind of talking about, you know, we always say we want you to find your home, right? And what I mean by that is, you want to find a place that really helps you to thrive and you can become the best version of yourself. Some place that allows you to step outside of your comfort zone, right? But then at the same time, you want a place that feels comfortable, right? A place that feels like home, a place that really allows you to feel like, you know, you can talk to people, you can live your best social life, and you can really get the best academic experience for you and who you are and what your lifestyle is. So a lot of times I always say it starts with reflection, right? Getting to know yourself, getting to know what you want and what price you're willing to put on. What is the value of education to you? What is the value of a graduate program? You know, and how much are you willing to pay for it? And I know there's a ton of scholarship opportunities that they mentioned before, which is awesome. Government and non-government, university-based, nonprofit-based, there's a ton of opportunities for you to find those scholarships and really to find the best fit for you. So, and just to keep that in mind, across the US also, right? The US is quite a big country. And so as you know, in Mexico, right, it's so diverse. The same is going to be true for the United States. So really finding a place that speaks to your heart, that speaks to the climate you want to live in, right? That speaks to the city, the environment, all of that will impact your experience. So it's not just choosing a name brand university, right? That will, you know, whether that's most important to you, that's fine. The name brand university that you want. Maybe there's a place in a rural area that you would prefer. Maybe there's a place, you know, that the price is more affordable or more manageable for you. So it really depends on you and what you're looking for. You kind of need to prioritize, right? And like I said, really getting to know yourself, and going from there. So that really can help you to figure out, do you want a large school or medium school, or do you want it to be more of a small private school? Do you want public or private, right? That's also going to be a difference in a lot of things too. So there's going to be so many differences, so many options, and sometimes it can be hard to narrow it down. But definitely for sure, finding the right financial fit will be just as important as finding the best fit for you. All right, and I think they kind of touched on this. I know we don't have too much time left, so I won't touch too much on this, but just knowing, right, there's a ton of scholarship opportunities, research assistantships, and then of course, once you're done with your studies, the OPT, being able to work legally in the United States. So there's a lot of options for you to help fund your studies. But as they mentioned, they kind of talked you through the calendar of when you need to apply, when you need to start budgeting, when you need to start thinking about all of those things it really does start early, because if you're going to work and try and save up some money, so you have additional, maybe you need money for, your plane ticket. That's not going to be listed in your tuition fees, housing, meals, health insurance, right? That's not going to be listed there. And a lot of times students don't realize how much the other things add up quickly, right? So you're going to need to, maybe you want to buy gifts for coming to the US, or if you're coming to a cold place, oh, I need to get a jacket and boots and a hat, right? So there's little things like that that will add up quickly. And so it is important just that you think about what are those additional expenses, and really taking advantage of being able to apply for scholarships. And I would just say, if you are interested in doing research and looking for the research assistantships, really reaching out to professors in advance and asking them, hey, here's my passion. What's your passion, right? What do you love to research? What do you do? And looking on the website, and finding the professor that matches, right, with what you love to do. And so that can be the best way to build connections, but also knowing, right, that they're going to be getting a lot of requests and that they're busy people. So you always really need to put your best foot forward, especially when you are applying for scholarships, assistantships, everything like that, in jobs, right? When it comes time for OPT or internships, that's going to be really, really important, is that you are putting your best face out there, right? And making sure that people know who you are and the different experiences. And I guess my best advice for you is, when you get to the US, your time is going to go by really, really fast, right? Just kind of like life does. We're already almost at the end of 2021, which is just crazy. It feels like it just started. So, the main thing is really that you're passionate, you love what you do, you love what you're studying, you find the value and the worth, right, in the money that you're going to be putting forward. And being able to be proud of yourself, right? And putting your, like I said, your best foot forward when it comes time to apply for those scholarships, assistantships, and jobs, when it comes time to work at the end of your studies, once they're complete. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you, but it's going to be up to you to grab them, right? Students will always ask me, Sarah, how much money will I be able to earn once I get there? Or how much more money can I get in scholarships? And I say, you're going to have to ask yourself that question, right? Because it's going to depend on you when you get to the US. Are you involved? Are you talking with professors, right, about different research opportunities? Are you applying for other scholarships? On your US visa, F1 student visa, right, you're normally able to work up to 20 hours a week on campus. As part of your experience. Are you working on campus, right? Did you find a part-time job that you're able to do? And then when it comes time after you graduate, right, are you applying for those jobs as part of your OPT, right? So there's going to be a lot of factors that will solely depend on you and who you are and what opportunities you're seeking out. And so it really is, it's the chance of a lifetime. I would just wish you the best of luck in your search. I know it's a lot to think about, and sometimes can be a lot of pressure too. So just take your time, and when you find a place that feels like home, really trust your gut. Make sure you talk to the admissions counselor, ask your Education USA advisors. They're super awesome and very helpful. So you have a lot of resources that are cheering for you to succeed. So just know we're always here, right? Happy to help. And now we can go ahead and ask questions.
Awesome, Sarah. Those were so nice tips for our Mexican students. Great. Thank you. And now, Marta Beltran, let's go to our Q&A section. Do we have any questions, Marta?
Yes, Liz, we do have some questions. So we can start with one specific about one program. She is asking, I am interested to study a master's degree in clinical nutrition in NYU. During my research, I found out that I have to process a course-by-course evaluation by WES, W-E-S, but I'm not sure if this will be enough, so I won't have to take more courses or to take some courses before my master's, or I will have to take some courses before the master's degree, and this will take me more than 2 years.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great question. I'm not sure if they've reached out to NYU because that would be a great question for them. I know it's always hard, and I can't speak on behalf of any university. I just can kind of talk generally, but a lot of times once they do the course evaluation, then you kind of know where you sit, right? You know how many credits will transfer, or kind of, if you have the equivalent, right, of a US bachelor's degree or what that looks like. And a lot of times you're not going to have your answer until you do the evaluation, which I know is hard because also all my credits are from the UK, right? So even though I live in the US and I'm a US citizen, right, I still have to go through the same process you're going through because I did my education outside of the US. And so I would just say if you have the funding and you're able to do that, I would say if that's kind of what they recommended you to make that next step, to know, right, what courses you'll need to take, or if you have enough credits and everything like that, I would say that's going to be your best bet option, is to kind of go through with that evaluation, because you're not going to really be able to make any decision with that specific university until you do that. I will say there are some other universities that do course evaluations in-house. And what that means is you send them your documents. Normally you have to apply first and everything like that. But you send them their documents and they'll evaluate it with their university staff. So not necessarily you have to use a third party, but they'll do it with their university. So both sides have their pluses and minuses, right? Wes, you can use for a lot of different other universities. If you do decide once you've done the evaluation, then at least you have your answer. So I would say that's my best advice. Good luck with that process.
Thank you very much, Sarah. There is another question, and some questions that I will take the chance also to give some sort of answer. And if you want Elizabeth and Sarah to add anything to that, the questions are regarding on recommendations to start the school research. Don't know where to start, information about style life in different cities and areas. For example, what does OPT mean? If there is some one-on-one consultations on this matter, or if there is any way to reach us to ask questions. So for all these questions, I can say that you can actually contact Education USA, your center, the center that is closest to you. We are going to type the official website of Education USA, is educationusa.state.gov, where you can find your closest center. And there, of course, you will get more information about all these topics. We guide you for free. In Mexico is for free, this advice. And we offer a lot of events that will talk about specifically OPT, about how to research your school. And when you get in touch with your Education USA advisor, we will provide to you one-on-one sessions, so we can guide you on that. Anything that you would add, or we can continue also with the other questions?
I think it's perfect.
Perfect. Okay, another question is there any standardized special lower cost for international students to take into account? Some specific lower costs in the US for international students?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So a lot of times, okay, so here's some things. A lot of times you might find that the tuition might be a little bit more expensive, but your living costs will be higher also too. So sometimes they go hand in hand, which means they're parallel, right? Sometimes tuition will be higher and the living costs will be higher. If you look at certain states across the US, right? I'm sure it's much like Mexico, where you have different areas that are more costly, right? More expensive to live in, and other places that will be cheaper. The same thing is going to be true with the United States. So I would say that's really a good place to start, is just trying to figure out necessarily where might be the cheaper places to live. The main thing is, I always tell students is, even if the cost, right, the tuition cost may be lower, but the living cost could be higher, right? So it's like, would you rather put your money into living, or would you rather put your money into your education, right? So that's always a comparison you're definitely going to want to think about as well too. I would say that's going to be really the main thing. Of course, being able to get your scholarships, assistantships, everything like that, that'll make a big difference on your total cost. So I would say that's going to be a huge one as well too. I can't really think, it's kind of hard because, right, not necessarily that when you come as an international student that your education will be completely free, right? That's very difficult to find anywhere in the world, right? And so you have to know, right, again, I kind of mentioned, like, what is the value you're willing to put on that experience, and knowing kind of what those costs are. So there's not necessarily going to be, I don't want to say some magical wand we can wave that will automatically make it cheaper. But there are a lot of steps that you can take, right, by doing your research properly to begin with, as you mentioned, which is great, about really knowing where are the cheaper places, where are the more expensive places, how do the scholarships compare. Those are mostly going to be the main things. Figuring out what is the part-time job I can have, right? Is living off campus or on campus going to be more costly for me? Talking with international students that are already there and asking them, in this area, what are my options? What are my opportunities? Is it too expensive to live? Is it manageable? What are your approximate costs, right? So I think really talking with other international students, that'll be really important. But I would just say the best thing you can do up front, as they've mentioned too, is just really doing your research, which I know doesn't sound like the most fun thing to do. But if you're really passionate and you love kind of where you're headed with your studies, you'll be willing to put that time in, because it means, right, where we give our time is what our priorities are. So yeah, so I just wish you the best of luck in searching. And yeah, I would just say definitely do your research and know yourself. Know what you're looking for, know what kind of experience you want to have, and know what value you're willing to pay for those experiences.
Perfect. Thank you. We are running out of time. I don't know if we have chance for one more question, or we invite them to type those and send to.
Oh yeah, I'm good. I have all night, so I don't know about you guys, but yeah, I'm more than happy to answer a few more if you guys have time, or if you need to cut it off to whatever works for you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think one more question is okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. As international student, can I get a bank credit from a bank in the US?
Can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
As international student, can I get a credit, a bank credit from a bank in the US?
I'm not quite sure. It means like a credit card?
No,
a
like
bank account?
probably tuition or something, a credit for students, some sort of, yeah, credit for students for the studies or something like that.
Okay. I would typically not think so much for that. Normally, I guess I haven't heard of necessarily anything in the US where the banks themselves will give credits. Normally, if you open a new account and you tell a friend or something, they'll give, they have some promotions like that. But yeah, I can't think of anything specific where they would give you money for being a student specifically.
Yeah.
But it never hurts to ask when you get to the US, or even if you ask your universities, where do students do the banking? What are my options? You can definitely find out more local, I would say local answers once you find out where you're headed. So
perfect. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun. And I wish you all the best in your search. I know it's a lot of work to put in, but just remember the end result, right? Everything you're working for, and that'll be your inspiration. So I hope you all have a great night too.
The same to you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Martha, for the questions. And Sarah, thank you very much for attending this webinar, for sharing all that that valuable information, and for all the tips that you shared with our students. And well, I'd like to share the contact information from Sarah you can email her a message here. And thanks for attending, everyone. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we invite all of you to join our social media and to attend our events every week. We have a lot of events every week, so please get in touch with us. And okay, so that's it for today. Thanks for coming and see you very soon. Bye-bye, everybody.